Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alicia Claire and welcome to another tiny house video. 10 questions to ask your tiny house builder. I'm speaking from personal experience here because I'm currently living in a tiny house that we did purchase from a builder in San Diego. And there are a couple questions that I felt like were really good that we asked, and then a couple other questions that I wish we had asked. So I thought that it'd be good to kind of compile these together. Maybe if you guys are looking to buy a tiny house, these might be little things that help you out, things to add to your list, or things to make you feel confident because you already thought to do it. Real quick, before I dive into this video, I did want to note that either this next Friday or the Friday after, I want to do a question and answer video about tiny house stuff. So it can be literally anything tiny house related. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section down below so that I can make sure to answer your question and I make sure that I'm helping out people with the information that they really need right now. Anyways, 10 questions to ask your tiny house builder. Number 1, and this should be the biggest one really, are they licensed? And are they bonded? Licensing and certifications, there are a couple different really popular ones for tiny houses. One of them is NOAA, and another one is RVIA certification. And when your tiny house builder has these certifications, it's a great peace of mind for you because you know that they're going by the most up-to-date regulations. And these certifications are really important because turns out there aren't a ton of laws that are connected to building tiny houses in any certain way because it's just tiny houses are regulated different than regular houses. It's a completely different ball game. So things that a regular house builder is required to follow, tiny houses aren't necessarily the same. So it gives you an extra peace of mind just knowing that they're licensed, that they are certified. And depending on the certification, you also know at that point that there's another third party coming in and checking them building all of these tiny houses. That might not be every single tiny house that's checked, but they do have to leave their warehouse available to have someone come in and check different tiny houses at different steps in the building process. Maybe you don't have the time to go down and check it, nor do you maybe have the know-how to know what you should be checking for. Someone's already got that handled for you. With that by itself, it shows their confidence in what they're doing and the product that they are making. When a company is bonded, it creates financial protection for you as the buyer in case anything were to happen or for whatever reason they just don't fulfill their contract. Then you know that you aren't being left high and dry. And tiny houses can be expensive. This could be anywhere from like a $70,000, $100,000, $150,000 purchase that you're making. So of course you want to make sure that everything is as it should be. The second question that I would ask is there a warranty? There's not always going to be a guaranteed warranty with all companies, so you don't want to go in just assuming. Sometimes they might have an additive package that you can do, but they might also just have a 1-year, 2-year connected with every single purchase straight out of the gate warranty. And that is awesome, especially it even just being a year. You can be in it, it travels to you, you get to see it through all the seasons in case there are any issues, whether it's with heat, with rain, anything. You have the opportunity to go through all the seasons, know what's going on with your tiny house, and just have more assurance. And you don't want to make a big purchase and then find out that you need to be putting a lot of unexpected money into it. So a warranty, if one can have one, is great. Question number 3 would be, are they registering the tiny house with the DMV? Are they registering the trailer? Because it is a vehicle, it's got wheels on it. I am talking about tiny houses on wheels, by the way, if I did not mention that before. So yes, you want to at least know if it's been registered with the DMV. You want to know if you need to do that step to register it with the DMV. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but to just tie up this little question, for us personally, we had our tiny house delivered to us by a third party, and our tiny house builder, because our tiny house is not registered through the DMV, they got us a one-trip pass. That allowed the tiny house driver to bring the tiny house directly up to us without it being registered. Once it got delivered to us, it's staying here for the couple months that it's been here, and ideally a month or 2, we'll be moving it onto our property. So we'll get a second pass from the DMV to move our tiny house, another one-trip permit, and then it really shouldn't be going anywhere. So it'll be different for everyone's situation, but you at least want to know from the get-go. Question related to that: does your company deliver? Do they deliver your tiny house for you, or do you need to outsource that with somebody else? So for us, because I mentioned we did outsource it, we spent, I'll put the price on the screen for what we actually ended up spending getting our tiny house delivered from San Diego to Sonoma County. It worked out really well. The day that our tiny house was expected to be done, it was done, so they were able to pick up the tiny house, but when building things like this, sometimes there's a little bit of gray area where what if they don't finish it in time, and then you've scheduled for a company to deliver your tiny house and they're there to pick it up, but the company's not ready. So if the tiny house company does deliver also themselves, that's awesome because you don't have to worry about that gray area there with timing. So it worked out for us. I'm not saying it will be an issue for someone else, but definitely something to think about. And then of course, if they don't deliver, then do they offer the one trip pass? Is it already registered? In which case you wouldn't need that one trip pass. Again, if they're delivering it for you, it's possible that you might not be local and that's why they're delivering it, and you aren't going to be able to do a complete walkthrough. So you could ask for them to do a walkthrough, record it, send you the walkthrough so you can see what everything looks like right before it's coming to you, and then ensure that they're going to tie things down. Of course, I don't know how many things are going to be in the tiny house before it's sent to you, but if you have appliances in there, if you have cabinets, aren't a huge concern, especially if there's nothing in the cabinets. But just to be aware, if you aren't going to be the one with hands on the projects, you do want to make sure that things are tied down and secured properly for the travel because things shake and move a lot. A fifth question would be to see if you can get access to their last 3 references and the last 3 projects that they did. And this is very commonplace, so it shouldn't be weird asking them if they have these and potentially reaching out to them, seeing photos, because this is just something really common, especially like I said with big purchases like this, and then seeing if you can do a walkthrough of a completely finished tiny house. A sixth question could be, at the noted price that they provided for you, is that also including any appliances, the heating and air conditioning system, the heat pump, or the hot water heater? Because with some companies, those are completely included, but with others, you need to purchase them and add that yourself, and that can add up to a pretty penny. We spent definitely a couple $1,000s on all of our appliances, our Mr. Cool air system, which we installed ourselves, and then our hot water heater, which we had to pay for someone to install also. Sometimes the labor is the most expensive with some of those things, so if they're doing it for you already, that's awesome, but if they're not, at least you know, and you can keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out the price of everything, and then you don't have any surprises in the future down the line. Number 7, questions about the window. So first off, are they double pane windows? And do your own research, but I would 99% of the time suggest double pane windows. And my reasoning for that is just our personal experience that we've had with our single pane windows, and we are replacing them to double pane windows. Double pane is just really going to help you keep in a lot of the heat. They aren't going to get condensation on them as much, and they're better all around for saving electricity, saving power, saving heat. It's interesting because our windows are single pane, but then our front door is double pane. So we're able to see and feel the difference between how it doesn't get as cold, how we never have condensation there, and if we had just from the beginning been able to do double pane, that would have been the way to go. And then also, how many of the windows open? Do they all open? Are there a couple that don't open? There's some tiny houses that I was looking at online, and they have some windows that literally don't open. They're just for looking outside of, which is great, but I think it's still good to know. We lucked out. All of our windows are opening windows, so we're able to get fresh air in here, get a breeze inside. One thing just to pay attention to. My 8th question would be, do they have blueprints that you can see of the tiny house? And do they have photos or videos of the inside of the walls? Or can they send that to you when they are building your tiny house? If a company has blueprints, I feel a lot more confident about the tiny house that they're building. That's just a little aside from my personal experience. A second is, if you're planning on hanging stuff on your walls, if you're planning on doing future work, if you have the opportunity to know where all the studs are, where all the wiring is and the plumbing is, that's fantastic. So take advantage of that. Number 9, what is powering your tiny house? Are you solar, propane, electrical, 30 amp, 50 amp? These are things that will be very important and relevant to your tiny house future, so you'll definitely want to know. And then if you're needing to buy things for your tiny house, you'll also want to know what kind of hookup you have and your availability, because you might not be able to hook up certain things depending on if it's the 30 amp or the 50 amp to your tiny house. So just make sure you're going about that properly. I do have a little video that dives into amps a little bit more, so I will tag that here. if you have any curiosities with that. I knew nothing about amps and really why it mattered before being in a tiny house. So I've at least gleaned a little bit of information from that. That is one thing I will say. Getting a tiny house, you're gonna learn so much. And I always love learning. So, you know, if you're ready for, it doesn't have to be a challenge, but if you're ready for an adventure, tiny houses, right? The last question that I would ask my tiny house builder is the size and weight of the tiny house. It might be obvious, like ours is 28 by 8, so you're like, okay, cool, it's 28 by 8. But do you know how tall your tiny house is? Ours is just over 13 feet. The reason that this even matters is you want to know if you will have a problem towing it on the road, if your delivery company is going to have a problem towing it on the road. There might be an extra charge if it's too large. Rhyme in there a little bit. For the most part, road regulations, and this is for the United States, there are a couple states that have a little different rules here and there, but for the most part, the specs that your tiny house can be and legally drive on the road with having an oversized or a wide load sign on your vehicle, there's a lot more leniency with length here, but for the width of your tiny house, it needs to be 8.5 feet or less for the width to legally drive on the road, and then 13.5 feet tall or less. So otherwise, you're going to be wider than a regular lane on the freeway, and they have to get a permit for it, get a wide load or an oversized load sign, maybe have a vehicle before and or after driving with it so that nobody else hits it, of course. I'm sure you guys have seen these huge things driving on the road or the freeway sometimes, and you're like, how are you even doing that? They're huge. Well, they have extra permits, and there are a lot of other hoops that they have to go through to be able to do that. And I do often see 10-foot wide tiny houses sold online. So we lucked out. Ours is 8 feet. I mean, I wish they'd give us that little extra 6 inches, but thank goodness we didn't get a 10-foot one, and then we had a little bit of a harder time with transportation. And then the weight of it. So you'll want to know specifically what the weight is referring to that they're giving you. It could be the trailer. It could be the trailer plus the tiny house built on top of it, but completely empty. It could be the complete finished product that they give you, whether that's with or without appliances. But everything that they build and add on to it, of course, makes it heavier. And then when you start putting your own things into it, it gets even heavier. You'll want to be conscious of its weight, the weight of the things that you're putting in it, because the delivery driver is going to need to know this. If you're trying to get a vehicle that can tow your tiny house, you're going to want to know this. We currently have a RAV4 hybrid that well, first of all, it 100% cannot pull our tiny house, that is for sure. And even the little trailer that my mom has that she helped us move and pack everything with and brought up here, our vehicle also wouldn't be able to pull that. We have been looking at different cars. I want to say that the Toyota Tundra hybrid, but it would be able to pull our tiny house. So stay tuned. We might be getting a new car at one point that makes it so that we can, actually move our tiny house by ourselves, because that would be great in so many different situations. So if you guys are looking to buy a tiny house, congratulations. I hope that this list of questions was helpful for you. If you're going into it, I hope this makes you just a little bit more confident. And if there are any other questions you think maybe we should have put on there, let me know. Maybe we'll do a little part 2 to the video. And then also a friendly reminder, I would love to do a question and answer, tiny house related, either next Friday or the Friday after. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Anything tiny house related, and we'll do our best to answer that for you. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you watching this video. If you are not subscribed to the channel but you want to see more videos like this, definitely go ahead and subscribe. I have vlogs coming out on Tuesdays, and then Fridays it could be anything from tiny house related to our kitty cats, who I can't believe didn't make any sort of appearance during this entire recording. I mean, Barney's at my feet, but that doesn't quite count, Eco-friendly, maybe some vegan cooking. I know, I'm a little all over the place. But if any of that interests you, all of that interests you, go ahead and subscribe, like the video if you liked it, and I can't wait to see you guys again. See you next time. Bye.